What's up, ghouls, gals, creeps, and mutants alike? It is the Undead Matt here with another brand new band showcase episode to present to you all for your listening pleasure. So, need to address it first and foremost. The reason we haven't come out with the band showcase episode until now is due to the quarantine. Because of that, it just kind of made it so we had to reschedule a lot of people that needed to come on or planned to come on because it just kind of affected a lot of routines, schedules. I mean, I don't really think I need to go into more detail besides that. I mean, it's the whole situation that's affecting all of us in unique and very, very weird ways. With that being said, I am excited to bring on our new guest today. It is BoneGazi from the band Deadsled Funeral Company, and it's although a mouthful of a band title, it definitely sticks out. What also is going to stick out is just this whole interview in general. I mean, it's always unique, kind of, to be able to talk to anyone in a horror punk band who's been doing it for a while, because although on an outside perspective, like if I was someone who'd never listened to the music or heard it before, I would say that it all seems similar and that it comes off similar. But what's so interesting is, well, obviously when you listen to the music and you listen to different bands who are in the genre, not only are there distinct different styles that you can tell apart, but there is also this very kind of unique perspective for each band member that you get to talk to about why they're doing it and what they bring into it. And there's also very similar influences too, and I think that's just a really interesting thing to talk about with any of these band members, and BoneGazi is definitely one of these people that stick out. Dead Sled Funeral Company is a very unique band in itself and a very unique horror punk band too. And he's a really chill person. I enjoy talking to the guy. Really sweet person. And with that in mind, all I can say is please support them down in the episode links below. We did kind of talk about real quick, because I do want to mention it, and since it's a band showcase episode, I did ask BoneGazi what would be some great ways for fans of local bands or underground bands to support their favorite underground or local band, and he did. BoneGazi did touch on buying merch is a great way, and so I will kind of pass that note along to buy merch. I'm going to put their merch link to their merch store in the episode notes, so you can click on that if you want to go support and buy a shirt from them. But if you do have other bands that you want to support and don't want to see struggle, I do recommend buying their merch as well. If they have the ability for you to buy albums at ask your own price, go ahead and do it. Pitch, buy whatever you can, and that's just kind of what we can do for now to help all of our bands right now that are struggling, or kind of feeling the effects of this right now. So just go to their online stores, go follow them on Facebook. Heck, even I would recommend, if you're comfortable with it, to message some of them, and someone will probably respond with how you can support their band. So I just kind of want to pass it along. It's a band showcase episode, and I figured I should address it. I'm so sorry for this long intro. With that being said, let's jump into this amazing interview with BoneGazi from Deadsled Funeral Company. An exciting episode. We have the one, the original, and the of until just now, BoneGazi from Deadsled on the show. Welcome, BoneGazi.
Thank you for having me, bud. Let's do this.
Thank you. So, I'm glad to see you're surviving. We were gonna have you come out sooner on the show, but it just because of everything happening with the whole quarantine, I mean, we had to switch things around. So it's good to see you're doing well, that you're doing healthy, and you're doing safe. Are the rest of the guys in Deadsled doing well too?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually just quarantined with our other guitarist in Dallas, where I got stuck for 3 weeks because I was on tour doing merch for someone, and midway through the tour got canceled. So I just got trapped in Dallas at, what we call the Goth House out there. It's just a bunch of our good friends, but they're all doing fine. Just got home. My bassist and other guitarist, Mange and Scythe, are here because we all live together. And then my little brother's just down in the swamp surviving. So it's all good. All good.
Right on. So you're calling straight from New Orleans. So yeah, this is really exciting, man. Again, glad to hear everyone's doing well. But that sucks though. Like, I shouldn't even say like kind of sucks. That does suck that you're like just like helping out with merch, like on a tour in general, and then just like last
Mm,
minute, oh, now you're in Dallas. I mean,
yeah.
we're going to talk about Deadsled, but kind of give everyone an idea what's going on around the world. What was that like for you?
What exactly? Just going on tour, or I'm sorry.
Just getting like stuck in like Dallas during this
Oh,
whole thing. Like,
it was fine getting stuck in Dallas because me and my other guitarist, Kyle Skellington, we got some work done. We were productive in our quarantine, and besides that, it just the thing that really sucked the most out of all of it is just shows getting canceled, like the Blitz Kid tour, which we were playing a few shows on. Stellar Corpses, Nosferatu tour, which we were going to be on a few shows, which it all got rescheduled, so it's fine. Or at least the Blitz
yeah,
Kid tour
okay.
did.
Uh,
But yeah, besides that, it's okay. They already announced it.
yeah, fair enough. I would hope so by now, right?
Yeah, yeah,
it's
it's all
like
over Facebook.
it's
I
like a lot
reposted
of
it.
it's weird because you either have a ton of time to do whatever you want to do, or you have like no time and you're working as many hours as possible right now. So it's I'm surprised anybody's
Yeah,
getting anything done.
dude. Yeah, it's rough. It's very rough, especially like trying to make money. Just staying there broke at a house. It was cool though because it was a bunch of crafty people, so we just made like post-apocalyptic costumes, or apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic, because we're thinking ahead.
Yeah. It's just what is going to be currency? Is it still going to be bottle caps, or is it going to be postage
Dude,
stamps? Who knows?
we banked on beans for some reason. It was in a drunken stupor. So the next day, one of our buddies goes and he buys a bunch of like beans to plant. So now there's just a fuck ton of beans growing over there. So hopefully that's it and it all works out, but we'll fucking see.
I like to think that stocking up on ramen is the secret currency right now.
Ooh.
like
Yes,
like that would be
absolutely.
the
Dude,
like give you
ramen,
three
toilet
packs of
paper.
ramen. Yeah, like just when we all have our own, societies after the apocalypse, just I'll give you three ramen to go kill the leader of that other
Yeah.
society.
Need to feed my family. Fucking love that. Yeah.
Oh man. Anyway, so Dead Sled,
Yeah.
BoneGazi, how did Dead Sled come to be, and when did you guys start?
Okay, so Dead Sled Funeral Company has been an ongoing thing. It started with so okay, let me bring you back a little. So before, songwriting, like I started like writing songs and stuff, I was in this like really hardcore band where I would just do screams, and I got sick of it within like a month. So I quit that, and then I just, you know, went and I bought a cheap ass guitar. It was a Fender Telecaster Mexican Standard at like Guitar Center. I just started teaching myself how to write songs really. And my little brother, we were still living together at the time, and he's the drummer. So we would just sit there and just I'd play guitar and he would drum, and then we just came up with a bunch of songs, and it just kind of went from there. Well, I moved to New Orleans because I'm originally from like Bayou Lafourche, which is like the deep south. So moving back up here, I just kind of found musicians that, like to dress up and get spooky and loved Halloween almost as much as I do. And, just have a good time and play some shows, man. But I would say like, yeah, 2 or 3 years. And as far as the writing process goes and just getting the, baby in and out of the oven.
So, I mean, it's really kind of interesting, just like hearing how you're starting out, right? Like, so you're talking about just starting with whatever you can get your hands on, instrument
Yeah.
wise, and then just like kind of hanging with somebody who vibes with you in general about what
Mhm.
you're doing, about what you're playing, and you guys make music. And then I always think this is interesting whenever we have any type of horror band or shock rock band come on, is that I always feel like there's just a little bit more amount of work that you have to put in because you're doing a different type of show entirely. Do you feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
there's a kind of weight there to try and do you want to touch on that a little bit, what that's
Oh,
like?
absolutely. I would love to. Yeah. Because that ties in another career of mine, funny enough. So, how do I start that? That's a lot. I think I'll start from the influences. What made me want to do that, and then get into actually going about doing it. So, like, I mean, growing
Sounds
up,
great.
yeah. So I'm 23. So whenever I was growing up, it was more of like the emo phase, and this band called My Chemical Romance, like watching them and seeing kind of how they romanticized on like, the dead and cemeteries and the more like morbid things in life kind of drew me to that. And then also getting into bands like Aiden, who also like took it to the next level a bit, like dressing up and being theatrical, really like, sparked it for me. And then obviously growing up more, getting into like Alice Cooper and then Ghost coming out and really just being like, holy shit, this is still possible. And you could still have a really fun live show. So it's not just dudes in jeans and t-shirts, playing the instruments, which I think is fucking boring. But, kudos to them. You like what you like. So, also growing up, I come from like a very artistic family, and my dad and I and little brothers would build our own props for Halloween and like put them in the yard and do all these like elaborate scenes just from scratch, crazy. And that got me into like the building of props and costumes and stuff. So whenever I moved to New Orleans, I actually started working at a haunted house called the Mortuary Haunted House, and that kind of made me dive into that career, which really helps because you learn all the techniques and all the secrets to doing this, that, and the other, and it just makes for a more quality product. So I also do that on the side. I'm a makeup artist and a set designer and prop builder for haunted houses, so that helps.
I've watched a few of those documentaries about like the most extreme haunts in the world, like in like the McCaney Manor and all
McCaney
all those
Manor,
ones.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, like every it's so. I mean, they're all interesting, really. McCaney Manor, I don't know if I would actually do that one.
yeah. That's a no. I wouldn't do it either. That's a terror test. Like, yeah,
But the
no.
reason I bring it up though is so like seeing how they make the props, even for how they just walk through a hallway, how they make a hallway just for scaring to have a scare jump happen in that hallway. I
Mm.
mean, it's really impressive because there is kind of like a level of hands-on like engineering and architecture you're learning. And
Oh
so
yeah,
to bring that to kind of like a concert level, it really makes me think of at the risk of comparing, kind of like the scale of like Guar does with how they make their really
yeah.
big sets. I mean, is this something you guys always just have to like kind of include in your budget of can we record an album or can we make a prop?
Well, I've learned to make stuff very cheap because you can take like household items and shit and kind of, make it movie quality. You just got to know what you're doing. So in the
Right.
years of me doing this, which I've been doing it for 4 years now, it's really taught me like to view things differently, to be like, oh, I know I can make this quality or whatever. But I do waste a lot of personal money on Halloween stuff. But I was gonna do it anyway, because that's my shit. Like,
As long as you could take it back home.
yeah, exactly. Which, oh man, it's not in here right now. I'm working on a new mic stand with like a torso and flowers and stuff. It's in one of the pictures that I'd sent you.
Yeah,
But
I'm actually looking
yeah,
at pictures right now too. I see the torso. It's got this I'm waiting for it to pull up on a full screen. But so yeah, it's a really cool torso to kind of like explain to all of our listeners who need a visual. It's just what BoneGazi's saying. It's a spine with a whole rib cage, the whole chest plate, everything, and it's just like a bouquet of flowers on top and with flowers in the chest as like the intestines. It's really cool. Like it's
thanks,
kind of
man.
one of those pieces where the more you look at it, the more of it kind of like stands out a little bit more, you
Yeah,
know?
trust me, it is nowhere near done. I have plans. Like, for instance, there's these it's almost like Christmas lights that you kind of I could wrap around it, like LED Christmas lights. And there's a little
Yeah.
switch on the back to where I can make it strobe, I can make it turn on and off. So it's all these little things. And actually, what really made me consider doing more elaborate shit like that and small stuff is Wednesday 13. Like
Yeah.
I work at House of Blues as well, doing like production stuff, and I've worked a bunch of their shows. Great dudes, fucking love those guys. But every time they come around, they have some cool new thing that they do, and it's amazing. So also taking that, it's kind of just like it's like taking influences from music, but just on a visual aspect.
Absolutely. So, talking about Deadsled, talking about who you guys are, talking about all this horror influence. I mean, there is kind of like this choice that has to be made when you're going into this type of band. I mean, yeah, in general, you do have to make a choice if you're going to be, in a punk band or even a death metal
Mhm.
band, and you got to get kind of within that same taste. But I feel like when it comes coming back to the uniqueness of horror rock in general and just horror punk, I feel like there's got to be more of a committed choice to be like, hey, this is what we are on stage. We're going to be compared to the Misfits, but we're going to stand on
Of
our own. We're going to make
course.
our own stuff. So you either with this or you're not with this. And I feel like that's generally what people say to any bandmate who's, might be flaky, but I feel like I feel like in some ways it's a little more poignant for a horror punk band. I mean, do
Oh
you
yeah.
feel, how do you feel about that statement?
It's very, very true. There's so many, aspects going to it, and especially trying to find people that are into all of that stuff, because basically, like, how it goes, and the guys, like, as far as like costumes and stuff go, I don't like fucking dress them and be like, this is what you're wearing. I'll be like, hey, do you like this? Is this cool? This, that, or the other. So just taking
Right.
into consideration people that are willing to roll with that and roll with the ultimate vision together, and also can play an instrument and have good stage presence, because you have to have good stage presence as well. There's a lot that goes into it, and it is way more difficult, I feel, for the horror punk, horror rock, goth rock, scene to really find dedicated, committed people like that. And that's why it's such like a small community still. you know
Absolutely. I understand what you're saying. It is definitely more kind of like that you have to be in the mindset that everyone else is in. You got to be comfortable with wearing costumes. You got to be comfortable with that. It's a show. You're putting on a
yeah.
show. And so, like, if you were going to act in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, you would be expected to wear a corset at some point.
Exactly, right, right. And it's fucking cool because all the dudes in Deadsled are fucking great. Like I couldn't ask for a better lineup, honestly. Like it's
Nice,
it's
nice.
amazing.
That's always great when everybody has the same mentality and is going the same direction that you're going. I mean, that definitely helps out a lot. We talk about that a lot too here on the show about
Totally.
bands who how you have to kind of have the mentality of it being a business in some sense in order to keep it going. And I think that's just kind of like adds into that of everybody literally, as cliche as it is and like as much of a joke as they make it in every single movie, of every leg on the centipede working in the same direction,
Yeah, that's
or
true.
whatever. So
Yeah.
that being said, Deadsled is another amazing horror punk band out from New Orleans. You guys are doing a lot of great stuff. You're coming out with a lot of new music as well. So, and you sent some of that music we're going to be playing today as well, called
Oh yeah.
Covenstead, Hysteria, and Moonlight Zygeist or Zeitgeist. I'm sorry, I'm
I
so
guess now
bad
you're
with
good.
that.
Dude, everyone,
Um,
even my fucking bassist will be like, "How the fuck do you say that?" Or like, "We have a fucking song called that," and I'm like, "Yeah, dude, you've been playing it for like a year now." It's great though. Everyone. Yeah.
Do you want to touch on each one of these songs and what they're about and how it came to be,
Oh,
or
sure.
do you want to touch on just one of them? I mean, this is more of your free control I'm throwing in
Yeah,
your
yeah,
field
yeah.
right now.
Oh, let's see. Let me get back to the times whenever I wrote these songs and what I was thinking about. So,
How about we start with Covenstead?
yeah, yeah. Actually, that's the one I was about to start talking about. Um,
Perfect.
so I've started to take this approach because it's very tricky, especially in the horror punk community. With it seems to be a trend, like people like to really write songs about horror movies or serial killers, this, that, or the other, and it's like it's a specific thing, which is fine, but what I'm like trying to do with it is kind of write my own horror scenario, or just bring it into everyday life.
Yeah.
And with Season of the Witch, really it's or sorry, Covenstead. Season of the Witch is what we used to call it, but then every time we'd say it live, like, this one's called Season of the Witch, everyone thought it was a cover, and they were like, that's a shitty Season of the Witch cover. I was like, no, it's
You're like,
not.
that sounds like Season of
Yeah,
the Witch.
exactly. No, but yeah, Covenstead's basically about someone getting lured into a scenario under false pretenses, and basically getting forced to join a witchy cult in the woods. That's one of the more, like, I go deeper
Right.
into other songs, but that one's pretty you know fuck, I
Now I
can't
got
even
what you're
think of the word
saying.
right now. Yeah.
It's your own take on a witch's tale.
Yeah, exactly. Right, right.
I
My
I
yeah.
like it. And I would say I feel like Cove Instead is a better title than Season of the Witch. If
Thank
I
you.
have to be a little biased, I
No,
feel like
please do by all means.
you don't really see a lot of songs titled Cove Instead, so it definitely jumps out.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point, too, you know, trying to find stuff that jumps out that you won't search and be like, oh, this is a song about Frankenstein. And then like all this shit comes up. But
Maybe that should
yeah.
be the song title. This is a song about Frankenstein.
Yeah. Oh my god. That'll be the one great marketing move. But let's see. Which one are the other ones that I sent you? I knew Kevin Stead, Midnight Zeitgeist,
Oh, you
and
also sent us yeah, Moonlight, Zeitgeist, and Hysteria.
oh, Hysteria. Hysteria is a really good one. So really touch on. So that one is basically someone who is dealing with mental issues and no one really believing them. And the way that I do, like the way that I wrote the lyrics and stuff is almost like I'm not even believing you, but now I know that toward the end, and yeah, you really were, fucked up in the head, and it's just one of those. It's really a mental illness song, and people dealing with that, people thinking crying wolf. So just bringing awareness to that.
Right. Well, right on. I understand what you're
Uh,
saying.
yeah, yeah. It's so weird explaining your own songs, like lyric wise. Oh, it's cool, but yeah, man. And Moonlight Zeitgeist is that one is one of the first songs I ever wrote, and that's whenever I was really getting into songwriting. Like that's the first song that I ever wrote in its entirety. Like guitar, bass, not drums, Muller brother to drum vocals, and that one is that's the cheesy horror punk, the token horror punk songs. It's about necrophiliism and falling in love with the corpse and all this, but it's super romantic and it's beautiful and dreamy. you know,
Right
so it's
on,
kind
man.
of
Well,
glorifying that.
does it make you feel vulnerable when you talk about your music? You seem a little nervous talking about your songs.
Yeah, because it's only because I've never really done so and like talked about it on a personal level because it does make you vulnerable. It's almost like it's one of those situations to where like I'll play someone a song like on my phone or send it to them, but I cannot be there while they're listening to it. I'll just get uncomfortable and freak out, you know. But it's one of those things that I've gotten
Right.
more comfortable with doing, and I'm gonna have to do. But yeah, it's an interesting feeling.
Well, I mean, it's a big step to share your art with someone that you're close to, and especially with a stranger you just met. So I appreciate you opening up
Totally.
about it as much as you have. Also, I also think it's kind of, in a weird way, kind of cool that people get vulnerable about their music or
Mhm.
about their art in general, because to me, that's always a sign that there's more into it than just you wanting to make a scary song. There's a piece of
Of
your heart
course, yeah.
into it. There's passion into it, and I think if you weren't vulnerable, if you didn't feel vulnerable or nervous about it, um, then your full heart wouldn't be in it. Kind of.
Right, yeah,
I mean,
totally.
at least that's how I look at it. Because I feel like if you weren't into it, then you wouldn't care if people asked.
No, I can definitely
So,
agree with that. Absolutely.
but,
And I'm sorry, what were you saying?
oh no, no, go ahead.
Fuck, I lost my train of thought. No, it's one of those things to where, like, even though it is a horror punk, horror rock, goth rock themed band, it wouldn't be right if I didn't make it a little bit, vulnerable and about me, like in my personal experiences and stuff, just kind of putting that morbid spin on it and seeing it from a different light. And it's also one of those things. It's like in real life, like whenever I get into makeup and I am BoneGazi, I'm a different fucking person. I'm putting on an act, but it's an act that people don't know is as vulnerable as I know it is because they just think it's something that you're putting on, but really it's like Halloween. It's like dressing up, putting on a
Right.
costume, and really being able to do what you want to do. You know, when in real life you're just quiet, shy, cool, whatever. But at that moment, you're just really fucking spilling your guts.
And I would add on to make the statement saying the difference between it being like a Halloween costume and actually doing it putting on a show is kind of what you're saying is that you're essentially putting your whole person out there for the whole world to see, but the way you see yourself. But what's interesting is that everyone doesn't see that. Only you see that, and I feel like that kind of gives you a rush in a way, and I'm not
Oh, it
meaning like
does.
just you,
It
unless you
does.
agree. So glad you agree.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's the best
But
part because you
there is
see.
this kind of
Oh
yeah,
no,
no,
sorry.
oh no, it's okay. We're doing this over Skype, so
Yeah, yeah, no, it's like the lag is crazy. But
that's okay.
no,
Go
just
ahead.
to touch on that a little bit, it's funny too because like beforehand I have terrible stage fright, and beforehand I really wouldn't like hone in on it and be like I am now to where it's super fucking exciting to have that feeling right before you go on stage and you're just terrified, you know,
Right.
because you feel alive and just so vulnerable, and no one can really take that away from you in a way, and no one will really feel how you feel in that moment. So it's interesting, and it's things that I'm still learning, like thought
Yeah.
processes and stuff going into it. But it's pretty wild.
Well, and well, the reason why I like really touching about like the art and the vulnerability behind it and all that is because it connects to the same theme as the reason why we started this podcast, which is making the case for horror and how great it is and why it shouldn't be like treated so like disgustingly as the way it is. Kind of
Right.
just to put up in a nutshell. And so even with a horror band like Deadsled, where people aren't up there to people are expecting to see BoneGazi, and that's who's going to be there is BoneGazi. And
Totally.
and I can see where there's a rush and also a security of that too. Because it's what you're talking about. It's being able to kind of be someone else. And when you're in that makeup, you are BoneGazi. That's who you are. And so it's really interesting when it comes into play to be able to do that and pull that off. I mean, it's the same thing to be said for even like Alice Cooper when he's on stage.
Oh, fuck
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
to be able to pull that off, does require you to go to a vulnerable state in order to be able to do it. You have to be able to pull down your own walls, and I think that's really awesome. And I think that's what's really interesting about horror punk in general is that it kind of carries on this tradition of talking about heavy subject matter and just kind of putting feelings in a different perspective or emotions in a different perspective that we never kind of really considered before. I mean, obviously we're gonna have the songs about like Freddy Krueger and or The
Yeah,
Shining,
they're fun. Yeah, you gotta have those. But
but for you to put in that little human quality into all those songs and even like kind of what you're talking about making up even your own witch's story, like that's it commends a lot of work because I always think songwriting is a big undertaking. That being said, though, I got a few more questions for you that we're going to ask, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Is there
okay.
anything happening for Dead Sled right now? I know kind of everything's kind of quarantined
Um,
at the moment, but
yeah. So basically, right now we're on hiatus, which really sucks too because the we're coming out with an EP. It's titled Casket Tapes, and it's gonna have 4 songs on it, 2 interludes, but that was supposed to be released like on Friday the 13th of last month. But then everything just hit, and it was like my producer can't get in the studio and finish mixing and mastering it. He has to do this, that, and the other. So that is coming. We will announce on our social media sometime this week. It will be released this week or next week. Like it's coming. And I know
so
that the people that do follow us know that, but it's
and
it's a process.
we'll make sure include those links too in the episode notes for people to follow and keep up with that. But here's another question I want to ask you. So, being that that bands right now, especially a lot of local bands, do kind of require that local help of going to shows and seeing you live and so on and so forth. What are some other ways that your fans or listeners of fans of other hometown bands or underground bands, how could they support their favorite artists if they can't play shows right now? What
Oh man,
could
that's a good fucking
they do?
question. Um, just fucking, buying merchandise mainly. That's how we all make our money here, you know. And huh. I never thought about that, That's a good one. That's a really good question. Um, just keeping the fucking spirit alive, man. Just let them know like that you're still there because they're and I'm feeling it too right now, even though we're, just have our local fan base and whoever else out there. But it's almost like we don't want people to forget about us and then become irrelevant because of like the months you're in quarantine and we weren't able to promote
Right.
this, that, or the other. Except Calabrese is making videos, so that's great. I love that they do that, and I wish I would have thought about that. Maybe we'll see. He's gonna make some spooky cemetery videos.
You can always do kind of your own like okay go at home made video.
Yeah, right. Exactly. We'll see. There's three of us in the house, so who knows what will happen? Come up with something.
So
We're
so
bored as shit.
so go buy their merch, go buy your favorite band's merch, go buy Deadsled's merch especially. Keep listening to the music, keep sharing it with your family, friends, coworkers, or I mean, if you are working, your other essential coworkers and whoever else. Share the music, buy the merch. That's all you can really do right now until we can get back to seeing shows.
Yeah, dude.
Last question.
Even
Last go. Oh, go
no, you
ahead.
go.
I'm sorry.
No, that was dumb. I was just like, and just send them pretty little letters to let
You
them know
know,
we still
letters
care.
work too. Text, tweet them. Twitter's thing now. Instagram them.
Yeah,
I
tweet
don't
them.
know what to tell you.
There you go. Yeah.
Like I'm in. I am part of the current generation, and I just made myself sound like I was a boomer. Tweet them.
Dude, I don't
I don't
even.
know.
Yeah.
Do that Instagram thing.
Yeah, do the gram.
Do the gram. Well, so last question. Same question we ask every single band member, band that comes on the show, and that is, what is the craziest story you're willing to share from a show that you have played or have attended? That won't get
Holy
you in trouble.
shit.
You are allowed to talk about whatever you want to, just nothing
Okay.
incriminating.
Nothing will get me in trouble or anyone in trouble. But okay, I have a few short stories. A few.
Okay,
Um,
go ahead.
so there was this. Oh my god. So there's this one show that we were playing. It was at the Goat, which is a local bar here, and it's one of our favorite bars to play. They're so great. But it was for Creepy Fest, which is actually like a horror punk horror rock just festival that goes on, that's ran by this gentleman called Bill Heinz down here in New Orleans, and it's been going on for like a few years now. And we actually, got the honor of closing it out last year. And with that being said, it went a little nuts. So our bassist Mange, he's been working on this bass, like cutting it up kind of in the style of like, Doyle and all those dudes who suit their shit up. But
Right.
he made his headstock sharp. And
Okay.
yeah, this dude is fucking reckless. So he made his headstock super sharp. And during one of the songs, to where the band gets kind of abrasive and goes out into the crowd and kind of get shit going. And it was a big crowd because it was the last show of Creepy Fest. The kids are going wild. They're all drugged up and drunk and probably don't even know what the fuck they're listening to. But Mange goes into the crowd, successfully shish kebabs one person in the leg, turns around and slices me right underneath the eye, and I just start gushing blood. There's still a scar there. I don't know if you can really see it. It's like right somewhere over
A
there.
little bit. A
So
little
that's there
bit.
for life. So that was one good one, and I just bled everywhere, and no one cared. I was like, I don't have anything, so we're good, but like, there's gonna be
Does
my
it ever
blood all
start
over all of
to
you.
burn? Does it ever
Nah,
start
never
to
so
burn when
serious.
he's nearby?
Oh my god, that's what it is. Nah, just get fucking stomach aches. But
Mage is
yeah,
near, I could tell.
right. There was that. The last show we played actually, which was right before all this shit went down. It was also at the Goat. Um, there was this woman. Not gonna name any names because I don't even fucking know her name. But she So first off, that show was pretty nuts. That was my first show using a wireless microphone too. On behalf of Stormy Daniels, actually, who's a really good friend of
Oh,
mine. Yeah, she actually runs
nice.
our merch
Cool.
sometimes. She runs our merch table sometimes. She's a homie. I do merch for her too. That's who I was on tour with, doing merch for her.
Really? That's so
Yeah, yeah.
cool. That
Right?
It's so weird. It's definitely like the definition of like what is it? It's a small world or whatever that. What's that
Yes.
saying where it's a small world, everybody runs into each other or something like that? I forget. I can't believe I'm totally missing my head right now, but it's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
cool,
very
man.
interesting thing. Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
But so that being said, I'm using her, and it's actually in those pictures, the big bedazzled wireless microphone that
I'm
she was
pulling it
pissed
up.
off because I ripped off a few of her rhinestones and I bled on her mic because I jumped off of the bar because we like to climb on the bar and stuff and get wild. I jump off the bar, hit my head on one of the lights, and like bit my lip and start bleeding everywhere. So I bloodied up Stormy Daniels' microphone. Whoops. But after the show, this chick came up to every single one of us. She started off with Mange, our bassist, and she was just
All
like
right.
blowing on his elbow. And Mange started driving, like, "What are you doing?" So she blows on his elbow. She goes up to my little brother and tries to hit on him, which he is not of age. Well, he is of age, but he's super
Oh,
young. So it was weird. And then she comes out to me and
okay.
she's like, "Let me smell your fucking armpit." I'm like, "What?" So I let her do it. She did it, and then just like walked away. That was wild. Yeah,
Oh my god.
yeah. Little small
Let
weird
me
things happen
spell
here and
your
there, but
armpit.
dude, they get fucking crazy here
That
in New
that
Orleans.
I yeah, that headstock story, I got a little nervous it was gonna end a little differently. And be like, yeah, just like Final Destination, someone got impaled.
Yeah. Oh
Like,
wait, one more. This one's nuts. Hold up. So
okay.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut off. So
No, you're totally fine.
We're about to play this show. We're like about to go on stage. Like in 20 minutes, we were set to go on stage. And I'm outside smoking a cigarette in front of this bar, and then a fight breaks out. And I'm not lying at all. Like it was crazy. So this fight breaks out between this tourist guy and this homeless man. The homeless man pulls out the knife on the tourist guy, and the tourist dude takes the knife from him and stabs him. Like stabs the homeless dude. The homeless dude's laying there bleeding. Right before we go on, fucking dies. So
Jesus.
I watched the homeless dude die and then went play a horrifying set. That was the craziest, actually. There we go.
That's probably one of the most intense examples of the show must go on.
Yes. Well, I was just like, well, fuck, dude. That was crazy. Experience death now. I'm gonna
So
experience a little life.
fair enough. Alrighty, man. So Deadsled, you're kind of on a hiatus right now. The best way to support you is either buying your merch, but also a great way to do it is support your music. Go listen right now. Go listen to these songs. Again, Ghouls Gals, we're gonna play these songs for you today. We're gonna play, all of them after this episode. So with that being said, BoneGazi, thank you so much for coming on here. This has been a
Dude, thank you for
blast.
having
You
me.
have been
It really was. This was
absolutely
fun.
amazing.
Hell yeah, man.
So much appreciated. With that being said, we'll talk to you later.
All right.
What is up, ghouls, gals, creeps, and mutants? Wasn't that a great intro to an outro? Yeah, I know. I was kind of hoping that I fooled you for a second there, and it was going to be the same intro again. But if that worked, ha, I got you. If not, wasn't that a great interview? Seriously though, yeah, no, what a fantastic interview. I mean, cool dude, right? Cool person to talk to. Just really interesting stories. Like the pictures that they sent us of the skeleton, Mike. I'm gonna try to include in the episode notes. I don't know if it'll attach properly. If it attaches properly, then I'll leave it there. If not, then I'll have to figure out something else for it. Might just put it on the website. That being said, please support Deadsled Funeral Company in the episode notes below. Go check out their merch if you want to go support and buy some of their merch. But otherwise, go support them, like them on social medias, download their music, share their music with your family, friends, scare your friends with it, or get them excited. I can't tell you how to live your life. I can only give you suggestions on what to do with it because I care about you and I care about the heart that's inside your chest because mine's cold and dead and I need a replacement. So I'm really kind of hoping someone pitches in here. That being said, Ghouls, Gals, Creeps, Mutants, you know how to support us, you know where to like us, Facebook, Twitter, search us up Hunger Core Podcast, Twitter @official. Pure HP, or on our Instagram, Punk Rock Horror Podcast. Hashtag Pure HP Podcast. It's thank you again, ghouls, gals, creeps, and mutants, for just continuing to listen and be so supportive. We're trying to come out with as much content as possible. Stay tuned to all our social medias. We got some big news coming up that we're going to kind of be using to kind of help everyone who's stuck inside right now. That being said, let's jump into the songs: Covenstead, Hysteria, and Moonlight Zeitgeist.
Sinking slowly in her wake, never hesitates to embrace regrets forged by repressed memories of the wreckage that's her past. Forest trails will erase. The forest fire warms her cold bones as this hunger grows inside of me. I'll line the sheets to her deathbed. She dances with my soul, and love it grows. Her complexion's pale and cold. She laid by the reservoir in her casket alone. And sometimes I think about it, how life and death are just a curse. But what's the difference if there's nothing we can talk about? And this necro human thirst. Moonbeams pour through the oak trees, release the earth beneath my feet to unveil this tragedy. And sometimes I think about it, how life and death are just a curse. But what's the difference if there's nothing we can talk about? And this necro human thirst. Whoa, 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 whoa.